Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, September 10th, 2024 regular meeting of the Stoughton School Committee. This meeting is being recorded by SMAC for future broadcasting. Please rise if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda tonight is public comment. The public comment portion of the meeting shall not exceed 15 minutes. Citizens of the district will be allowed up to 3 minutes to make their statement and must begin their comments by stating their name and address. Please be respectful. Public comment is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals in the school committee. It is an opportunity for a citizen to express an opinion on a topic within the school committee's authority. The authority of the school committee primarily concerns the Stoughton Public Schools budget, the performance of the superintendent, and the educational goals and policies of the district's public schools. So we have one person signed up for public comment. Lisa Lyons, if you would like to come forward and make sure that you turn on the microphone.
Okay. Hi.
Whenever you're ready.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for letting me speak for a moment. I didn't want you to feel jealous because I recently spoke in front of the select board, so I didn't want to leave the school committee out. So I just want to take a moment to express that as we all, meaning the school committee and the select board, is coming up on budget season, that we keep in mind how the taxpayers are feeling in the town with regard to the budget. I am getting a lot of feedback with how incensed they were with the increases last year. So they want me to share that, as do I. And they also are concerned because they are seeing, and they view it as the school committee and the select board. They want our school committee and select board to be working together, but they want them to be working together for the benefit of the taxpayers. And there's a contentious working group right now that is infuriating the public for a couple of reasons. One, because there was an election and they want the town officials, basically the school committee and the select board, to be respecting the voters' votes. They don't want to view these two official groups to be selecting the vote, and they feel that basically that's the push, with the working group being a very one-sided, member-heavy, all on the yes side. So I'm just publicly speaking for that, so you have the feel of the taxpayers. They are infuriated over this. So I just want you to keep that in mind. And just on a personal note, I wanted to reach out and say, I watched the last school committee, and I wanted to extend my deep appreciation for Lindsay's. I'm sorry if you don't want me to address you personally.
You should be addressing the chair.
Okay, I'm sorry. People wanted to know, and I personally wanted to thank the vice chair of this committee for making a motion to freeze salaries. It at least gave a sense that she's attempting to listen to the public voters with the financial fatigue they are feeling with the incessant taxes. And I also would like to thank the chair herself for seconding the motion. I know 3 other members did not go along, and that motion failed. And people were they are very upset with that. But that being said, I almost fell off the chair by the end of the meeting. I don't know how you have 3-hour meetings. It's almost as bad as another committee I'm on, that you're going to present $1.2 million in articles.
And your time is up.
They're upset about that as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. As we have no one else signed up for public comment, let's move on to superintendent update. Dr. Baeta.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and I'm going to suggest that we turn this over to our student rep for some updates.
Thank you, Rachel. We'd like to introduce our student advisory representative, is Angie Miller, and she'll be working with us. We're very happy to have her back. Thank you, Angie.
Yeah, I'm Angie Berry. I'm a senior at Stoughton High, and I'm an active member of the community, so I'm just going to share some updates. So the fall sports began. There's the numbers are pretty good at this high school. I'm not sure if they went up or down, and I don't know the logistics, but they're pretty solid right now, similar to last year, I think. And obviously school is in session, so the high school has a new schedule this year. The previous years that I've been in high school, we had an eight-day rotation, like an 8-day schedule. This year, it's a 4-day cycle, but it's basically only 2 different days. So you have 4 classes one day, 4 classes the next day. They're all 79 minutes, and then in the middle is a flex block. So that's when students can study, get their homework done. It's really just their time. So personally, I really like it. I know there's mixed feelings, like anything, but I think if students take advantage of the flex block, it's a really good opportunity. And I like the consistency of the schedule, which a lot of people like as well. The routine is really good. And then with the lunches, they added a 4th lunch. So last year we had 3 lunches. They were really crowded. It was kind of hard to get a table. The lunch line was insanely long. It was a very prominent issue. So this year, the lunch line is a lot shorter. It's and the tables and just the capacity. It's like there's not as many people. You don't feel as crowded. It's not as loud. So I think the 4th lunch was a really good addition. And it's really beneficial just to make everyone feel more comfortable being at lunch with everyone. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Angie?
Welcome back, Angie. Thank you, and congrats on the start of a new school year. This is actually probably a question for Ms. Miller. Sorry, but I'm excited to hear that the new schedule is going well so far. I know we're only like a week in, but or no, longer than that at this point. No, a week. So yeah, actually a week. Wow. Okay. So anyway, I'm glad it's going well. I'd love to. I know something we talked about in the spring when we'd initially rolled it out was doing a survey a couple weeks in. So I'd love to. I know it might make sense to wait a little bit longer just until folks are like really in the flow of the year, but really want to make sure we're getting student feedback as like folks get into the routine and just see like what's going well, like where do you need more support, what do your teachers need to know about the new schedule, and just make sure that we're really like listening to students in the rollout. I think that would be great. So I'd love to kind of put a pin in that and come back to it in a little bit. But just wanted to say that too. But glad it's going so well so far.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. Thank you. We look forward to hearing from you through the school year. Back to you, Dr. Beta.
Thank you so much. So opening week, we had our convocation a week ago. Actually today went pretty well. It was a very positive morning. And we got to really set the tone for the school year, I think, in a positive way. We did have some glitches in the opening of school, as we normally do. The pickups in the morning went really well. The afternoon was a different situation on the first day with students. And every day, we're really trying to address some of the issues, especially because of traffic. Something we can't control, but that is causing some havoc around the drop-offs in the afternoon. Want to be respectful also, make sure that both parents and families that are dropping off children at the school are adhering to all transportation requirements, following, we have plenty of markers down in our schools now in terms of the signage and all of that. Thank you. And just want to make sure that parents know that you're not passing a bus. Of course, I can't really do anything about policing the streets, but we do ask that the public recognize that there are school buses out and about, and that kids are waiting at corners, and passing a bus is a violation of state law. Also, parents and guardians, it's imperative that they speak to their children about the expectations and protocols of being on a bus, sitting down, not hitting each other, and all this little stuff that can happen on buses. We do have protocols, and we do tolerate things, but we do get to the point where if we have to move a student off the bus because they're being unsafe, we will do so. Preschool enrollment is at 155 students with a waiting list of over 90. That means that all that hard work that went into, and your support as a committee of moving to those extra days and all of that stuff is definitely working. It's unfortunate that we don't have the space, but that's, I guess, right now that's a good thing to have instead of a negative. And current enrollment is going to exceed and get very close to, well, it's going to exceed 3,800 students. We don't have any numbers yet because we have all the numbers of the kids that are enrolled. But we do have also our shelter students, of which we have approximately 130. That number is going to fluctuate on a daily basis because of the new regulations with the state and how long families can stay and all of that. The employee census audit is happening from the Commonwealth and Mass Teachers Retirement System. You have a handout on that. This is pursuant to Government Accounting Standards Board Statement number 67, or what's known as GASB 67. And that's a census data consisting of the demographic data as well as wages, contributions, and employment dates submitted by us for each employee to the Mass Teachers Retirement System. So now it goes in through an audit by the State Controller's Office, which is a gentleman by the name of Clifton Larson Allen, who will be the independent auditor conducting this. There's no cost at the local level for this audit. The Department of Energy Resources has provided the town of Stoughton and its schools a $249,455 grant, of which $122,560 goes towards the OMS, Hanson, Gibbons, Daw, and Wilkins for refrigeration controls, kitchen food hood controls, weatherization, mechanical installation, and weather stripping. The remaining roughly $126,000 is on the town side with their buildings. So that's a great thing for us to have to do some upgrades at no cost locally. I want to publicly thank Mr. Rigo and the entire custodial maintenance staff for getting us ready for day one. Also thank our administrative assistants district-wide for getting us ready for day one. And lastly, to the dynamic and creative administrators for really a smooth opening at all of our schools this year. The elementary building committee will resume its meeting starting tomorrow on the 11th at 7 p.m. It's a virtual-only meeting. It has been posted. And last evening, I attended at a request of the South School Working Group Committee, I think that's the title of it, and presented for about 90 minutes questions that had been asked. And as of today, I've been asked a secondary group of questions, and I'll be attending as a guest again on Monday. On a fun note, the DESE Picture of the Week from DESE that gets sent statewide is our Daw Elementary School students. So it's kind of cool that our kids are front and center, and the kids are didn't really know about it, but the Daw School is celebrating it. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for the superintendent?
Just really quickly, is the 3,800 enrollment count inclusive of sheltered students? Or is that
Yes, right now it is. We'll come back and break that. I'll
Great.
remember that as of October 1st, if they're here, they become part of our October 1st enrollment. So last year we had 26, even though we ended up with 98. That 98 was because we had 72 more kids show up after October 1st, and that's how we got the $104 per student for those 70 plus. This year will be that last year of the 104, except for any students that we get after October 1st.
Right, okay, thank you. And
Yep.
the reason October 1st is important is because it's the cutoff date for when the state does Chapter 70 calculations,
Correct.
which impacts our funding for the next school year.
That is correct.
Just
Yep.
to lay it out.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Armando, any questions? No. All right. I had a question about the transportation, if we've been able to, if we're still running the double runs, or if we have been able to.
Yeah, thank you. No, we're still doing double runs. We are waiting for another bus driver to potentially support that, but right now we're at the point of in order to do what a lot of folks ask for, in order to get kids on buses, we're doing those double runs. I have some concerns about those double runs, especially as we get into the winter months, so I'm hoping, hopefully there's some further funding that comes down for these one-time funds, either through the current shelter situation or other funds that can become applicable to us. But right now, we're don't have the funds for another bus, but more importantly, don't have the bus drivers.
Right. All right, thank you.
Sure.
All right, the next item on the agenda is new business. We're going to start with appointments. I know it's a long list, but it should go fairly shortly. The first is SMAC Board. Every 2 years, we need to appoint a representative to the Stoughton Media Access Corporation. Ms. Gina Coe has served as our representative for the past 2 years and has agreed to serve again. So I'd like to appoint Gina Coe to the SMAC Board. The next is the North River Collaborative, and that will be Dr. Baeta. I need to read the official form, so bear with me. Pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 4E, as amended by Chapter 43 of the Acts of 2012, Members of the Board of Directors of the North River Collaborative are to be appointed annually. Dr. Joseph Baeta is appointed to serve as the Stoughton Public Schools representative on the Board of Directors of the North River Collaborative in accordance with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 4E, as amended by Chapter 43 of the Acts of 2012 for the 2024-2025 school year. Thank you, Dr. Baeta. The next is the Pilgrim Area Collaborative, and bear with me, I also need to read this. That will be Ms. Lindsay Kleckler again. Thank you very much for continuing with that. The official notification is pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 4E, as amended by Chapter 43 of the Acts of 2012. Members of the Board of Directors at Pilgrim Area Collaborative are to be appointed annually. Lindsay Kreckler is appointed to serve as the Stoughton Public Schools representative on the Board of Directors of the Pilgrim Area Collaborative in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 4E, as amended by Chapter 43 of the Acts of 2012 for the 2024-2025 school year. All right? Yes.
Sorry, just really, this reminded me, I think at a previous meeting, I said that I didn't have a PAC update because we didn't meet all summer and the next meeting would be in September. And I was actually wrong, it's in October, so just want to name that. The meeting hasn't happened yet, but I should have an update soon.
Okay, let me know when.
Did not want to forget that.
Let me know when you want to be put on the agenda for that. Thanks. The next is warrants, and I appoint, and that's usually filled by the chair and the vice chair, so I appoint myself, Catherine Weiss, and Vice Chair Lindsay Kreckler to warrants. Sick bank, I appoint Chris Shannon, who unfortunately is not yet online, but may pop in a minute, and Lindsay Kreckler to the sick bank. For building committee, I reappoint myself, Catherine Weiss, to the elementary school building committee. We have 3 negotiations coming up this fall. Our first is administrative assistants. By virtue of alphabet, I'm not prioritizing anyone, but I appoint Karen Powers to the negotiations team with the Stoughton Schools Administrative Assistants Association, and we look forward to working with our administrative assistants on their contract. The next is the cafeteria workers. I'd like to appoint Chris Shannon to the negotiations team with the Cafeteria Workers Association, and we look forward to working with our food service employees on their contract. And the final negotiations open this year are custodians, and I appoint myself, Catherine Weiss, to the negotiations team with the custodians, Local 362, AFL-CIO. We look forward to working with the custodians on their contract. We have recently finished the paraprofessionals and hall monitors, and I'd like to keep Armando Barbosa as our contact person as we finalize dotting all the i's and crossing all the t's. For STA Unit A, we are not in active negotiations with them, so those negotiations are scheduled for next year. I would like to keep myself as kind of the point person for that, and possibly bring Karen Powers on board as we finish the budget. I think it's time we need to look through that contract and think about how we're going to approach the negotiations for next year. And same thing, I'd like to keep Lindsay as the point person for Unit B. Again, we're not in active negotiations, that begins next year, but just for any questions or just to collect the material as we did last time with the JLMI, just to keep the information together for that unit so that we know what we're going to do for those negotiations. Back to appointments. For Policy Working Group, I appoint Chris Shannon and Karen Powers to the Policy Working Group. I know that Mr. Ford is not available tonight, but we will get to him because we have some policies that need to be finalized after last year and possibly some new ones that we need to look at. For the Budget Working Group, which will be forming soon, I appoint Armando Barbosa and Lindsay Kreckler to the Budget Working Group, so thank you. You're going to have so much fun. Transportation Working Group, I'd like to reappoint Armando Barbosa to that, and I will make sure that you have all the emails from the parents and the feedback that we got on the process this year. I'd like to reappoint Chris Shannon to the Wellness Committee. I'd like to appoint Karen Powers as the liaison to the Special Education Parent Advisory Council, that's CPAC. I'd like to reappoint Chris Shannon as the liaison to the English Language Parent Advisory Council, that's the LPAC. And then I appoint myself, Chair Catherine Weiss, to the Use of Facilities. So I think we've done everything. I think we crossed everything off. All right, the next item on our agenda is the Stoughton High School Theater Program donation from the Marilyn Rodman Theater for Kids Acceptance. Yes, I'm bringing Ms. Julie forward. I know this was, do you want to present this? Or?
I'd be happy to.
Sure.
Yeah. So good evening. I know this was a last minute addition. I appreciate that. It was due to a timely matter in terms of getting it on the agenda a little earlier. We are really grateful. The Marilyn Rodman Theater for Kids has donated 10 tickets to the national tour of the Shrek
musical. And for the September 15th show at 6:30, it's an approximate value of $490. The Maryland Rodman Theater for Kids organization is a subset of the Rodman for Kids organization. One of our staff members on the drama staff works for the Maryland Rodman Theater for Kids organization, and so we are just really grateful that they thought of our children and sharing that opportunity to provide access to the theater to our students. So we are hoping that if the donation is accepted, that the drama program will then raffle those tickets off and use it as a fundraiser for the program. So I would gratefully, respectfully ask that it be accepted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions from the committee? Yes, Armando.
This is for next week?
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry. This is for next week?
Yes.
Is there enough time to raffle them off?
There is.
Those
We will
kids
make
can,
it happen.
yes, those kids can organize very well. They'll make it happen. All right. And so just to, I noticed that this is just the tickets, transportation and supervision are separate from that. So they would have to provide
Yes,
that.
it's not a school field trip. This will be
Okay.
a family organized opportunity.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to point out that this is school committee policy and state law for us to review public donations like this, so this is why it's appropriate for us to review this. If there are no other questions, can I have a motion to accept the donation of 10 tickets to Shrek the Musical from the Maryland Rodman Theater for Kids?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
So motion was made by Armando, seconded by Lindsay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So the motion is carried 3-0 since we have 2 members absent. So thank you and enjoy the show to whoever's able to go.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes. And the next item will also be Ms. Miller. This is the NEASC accreditation update. So again, welcoming Stoughton High School Principal Ms. Miller to review the letter from the New England Association of Schools and Colleges.
Thank you. So first, I just want to start by thanking all of our stakeholders, including the school committee, superintendent, for their participation in the NEASC process, which we started over 2 years ago. It's a new process in NEASC where it's basically a 2-year process where you start the review, you have a collaborative conference, you work with that collaborative conference to decide what your priority areas are to work on, and then over the next 2 years, you work on those priority areas for the decennial visit, which we just had this past spring in 2024. And after the visit, there's a report that's written. That report is public, and they review your accreditation. And so I just am really grateful for all the stakeholders for their participation through surveys, focus groups, being a participant in one of the either collaborative conference or decennial visit. So thank you very much for that. It was great feedback, and it really led to a really productive visit and accreditation process. So we did receive a letter in August of 2024 after the NEASC board had the opportunity to review our materials and take a vote. And I am really pleased to announce that they did vote to award our school continued accreditation through NEASC. It's really important for high schools to be accredited. It dictates to other colleges and universities that you're reaching a certain standard, and so your students tend to be a higher rated candidate for a college or university admission. So we want to make sure that we keep that accreditation. And I just want to point out a couple of things. They did give us some commendations and recognize some areas that they were really pleased to see our work. So I just want to take a moment to brag a little bit. That they were really pleased with the creation of the vision of the graduate, and that we used multiple stakeholders to create that vision of the graduate, and how we have used that to sort of carry down throughout the district in our work to bring it pre-K through 12 rather than just 9 through 12. They were very pleased with the welcoming and friendly and enthusiastic student body. They commented many times during our decennial visit about how friendly the school was, how positive the atmosphere, and how eager kids were to show what they were working on and to brag about what they were doing. So I was really positive. They also wanted to talk about the commitment to increasing student voice and choice in the school and the classrooms. They thought that was a huge value to the work that we were doing and the changes we were making. They are really proud or really boastful about the courses and the number and variety of courses we offer in our program of studies. They were very pleased with the unified efforts towards working on our multilingual language learners. And they were really pleased about the showcase of student work at the Night of Excellence for students to demonstrate their knowledge and learning. There were several other accommodations, more than I'm going to provide at this time, but it was really a very positive visit. So of the 6 foundational elements that NEASC also holds you responsible for, in addition to the other standards and elements, we reached 5 successfully, 5 out of 6. We met fully and completely. The 5th was on curriculum, and this is an area that the commissioner also noted that it's difficult for any school to hit that 100% because it's such a living document. You're constantly working on it. They were pleased that we had identified a common curriculum template, which was part of our issue. We have curriculums that are in different templates because over the courses of the year, we've had different leadership that has selected different templates, so we've been working on putting in the right template. But we do need to continue to work on that curriculum as well as our other priority areas. So if at some point I come forward with the school improvement plan, you'll see that our school improvement plan is very much tied to some of this NEASC work. We are required to provide a first report of progress in May of 2025, so I will be working on our school improvement plan this year to continue to work towards our foundational elements and our priority areas so that we can have a successful progress report in May of 2025. We have a follow-up process that we're doing now. Myself and some of the follow-up committee members will be attending a webinar workshop in the end of the month, this September, so that we can find out a little bit more what's required of the follow-up process. But we're really excited to dig in and get to work.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee?
Good
Congratulations.
job.
Yeah, thank you. Congratulations on this. I know it's been a process. I did have a question from a committee member who, we've lost our network connection. Okay. If it's us or them. We had a question about the approaching the curriculum, the common curriculum or consistent format as being an opportunity for students and as a way to kind of help families understand what's expected of students, help students understand what's expected of themselves, help students and families plan when there's an extended absence, like for example, a student going out for a medical issue or something like that. Just wanted to comment or ask if that's part of this move towards the common curriculum format.
Yeah, maybe if I understand it completely. First of all, my plans for this year is to first start with a survey of students for our program of studies. It has been a while since we have done an overhaul of that, and I'm working on creating the master schedule going into this school year. Myself really seeing which courses are having high requests and which ones are having low requests. Really taking a look at that data, and so, although we offer a wide variety and a lot of great courses, they're not necessarily all the kinds of courses that students want to take. They're not all eager to take everything that we have. And so it might be time to sort of freshen up that program of studies and bring in some newer careers. I happened to go to a NEASC workshop too over the summer, and it was about Vision of the Graduate. It gave me a lot of ideas about some yielding student feedback in different ways, but also talked a lot about making sure that you're planning for the careers of the future. And they did this interesting AI search. They went into AI, give us the 50 careers that will be in the future that are not around yet, and it generates this like crazy list of 50. You can't think of they don't exist, so you can't even name them right now. But they have these crazy names, and so thinking about the fact that we need to start planning now for those careers that don't even exist yet. So what skills do they need? What content do they need to be able to do that? So they gave me some great ideas about being able to tie that in with student work and getting their ideas. And also using the Vision of the Graduate to have students create some can-do statements rather than the staff creating those as part of that Vision of the Graduate. So I'll be working on some of that work. So that will be a lot of student-focused work that will tie directly to our curriculum. In terms of like PD this year, we're doing a lot of work to build out our schedule or build out lessons and planning to accommodate our new schedule. So We have focused completely on an in-house professional development model where teachers will be working on some topic that we've already covered before in the past years through professional development, like differentiated instruction or SEL or multilingual learners or vision of their graduates. So different areas that we've covered, but taking those areas and now making them real into the lesson plans themselves, building them in a very intentional way, making connections, sharing best practices with one another, writing lesson plans that are designed to reach certain goals and accommodate the 79-minute block every other day. So we have some pretty hefty work to do for that, but I think that'll be really good work, and I think our teachers and our students will really benefit from it. And so there is a lot of that that will happen. In terms of like long-term absences, I'm not sure at this very moment how we would address that differently, but you know, that's something that I've talked a lot with my school council about. My school council has a lot of ideas about how we could make that process a little bit more smoother or more efficient for students and for teachers in terms of, you know, using a syllabi a little bit more meaningfully and intentionally. And so we have those ideas that we're talking about as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That answers the question.
I have
Yes,
a question.
sure, Amanda.
When the survey is taken and you find that some of the students, they're not interested in a certain elective, does that elective go away?
Well, it'll depend, right? We have to decide just because a few students don't like it, if a lot of students do, we might keep it if there's still a benefit for it. You know, for example, we teach a course called Digital Tools. That might be a course that we either need to change because students already have those skills by the time they get to us now, or we might have to tweak it, or not renovate, that's not the word I want. Revise, thank you. Revise it in some way. So it might not go away, or it might go away, or it might change in some way, or the title might change, the content might change. So it'll really depend on what that survey says. It'll also depend a little bit on what our staff, our current staffing, what they would be able to bring to the table based on what the students are asking for.
Well, sorry, a follow-on question would be, if a class is determined to be an elective and no one's interested in taking it, and it does go away, is it possible to take that time and provide the teacher that resource for retraining and perhaps place them in areas where the kids want to take a course, but they've been left out because there isn't enough room, as opposed to creating a brand new one?
Yeah, absolutely. We can always take the courses. You've seen it in the program studies when I've come before. We can take courses offline temporarily, leave them in the program of studies, but just say we're not offering this next year, right? That's one option. Or we can provide training. I know there's a lot of things that myself and the curriculum coordinator, Brian Scanlon, have been looking at in terms of CTE and certificate programs. We have a real interest in cybersecurity. That's a really popular field right now. And we would have some links to Bridgewater State University itself. They just built a huge lab over there. So there'd be some local resources that we might be able to use. So there are, and we are on the waiting list for JROTC. So there are some programs and some other things that we're already thinking about. And so there definitely would need to be training for staff if those were the areas that they wanted to be in.
Some of the, in particular, some of the advanced classes, some of the honors classes, which often get full, and some of the kids are preparing for college, and it's a bit benefit if they take that class, but everyone can't fit in them, so they're dropped out. Can that, if that particular elective goes away, is it possible to expand that particular class?
Yeah, it really depends. The master schedule is a really complex beast. So when you decide like how many honors sections of a class you want to run, you have to also weigh out, you know, if I run 3 sections of this, is that going to mean that my college level class is now going to be at, you know, 30 because I'm running 3 sections of 20, you know, of honors. So it's a real tricky balance to make sure that we meet all the needs of the students as best we can. We definitely hit the required courses, so we make sure that our students have room in required courses that they need for graduation requirements, and electives have to take the second seat priority as a result, but we do work very hard to make sure that students have, you know, the level and the course that they want. sometimes they can't take it one year, but they might be able to take it the following year. And this year, we actually increased our course sizes in a few classes. Our enrollment is up, and so we are at 26 students in some classes, which is still a reasonable number, and comparatively to other schools around is still very low. But our teachers have been used to sort of capping at 24, but we have exceeded that at this point.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Angie, do you have anything to add about the NEASC process or anything? I mean, congratulations to the students, and I think that's wonderful that they called the students out, especially for all the great things.
Yeah, I did. I met with some of the NEAS visitors. I was in a meeting about the vision of the graduate, so I think that was a very heavily dissected piece of it. But I like the idea of revisiting the program of studies. It definitely could be, specifically the digital tools class, I think that's a really good place to start, because things like financial literacy are probably more relevant now, and things, because learning how to use Google Docs is kind of self-explanatory. But yeah, I like the idea of revisiting the program of studies. That sounds like a really great place to start, just for the future.
Perfect.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
The next item on the agenda is unfinished business, starting with the school physician appointment. The school committee appoints the school physician on recommendation from the superintendent as per the Education Reform Act of 1993. The school physician serves as a consultant to the school nurse, and administration is needed on medical and health matters. Dr. Michael Klein has served as the Stoughton Public Schools physician since 2019. We do have his updated resume and confirmation that he wishes to continue in this position. Dr. Bailey, anything to add about?
I appreciate our Ms. Shannon telling us about the update of this information, and he is a full-time doctor at Atrius Health East and Family Medicine, and that was the issue that we were missing from last time. So I am recommending that we continue with Dr. Klein.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Glad we got his updated resume.
Yes.
So I'd like to move that we approve Dr. Klein as the school physician, and it's a yearly appointment, right?
Yes.
Okay, for the 2024-2025 school year.
Correct. All right. So the motion was made by Lindsay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, seconded by Armando. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Chris is not yet on it, so it's 3-0. That motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is the hall monitors UFCW Local 791 Memorandum of Agreement approval. This was our newest union, and following the successful negotiation, we have this MOA. Any comments, questions, Dr. Bader, anything you'd like to add from last
Nothing
time?
has changed since the last time that you reviewed it, both in executive session and then public, and haven't received any other comments at this time.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for tonight?
I have
Armando,
one.
yes.
After I was reading this third or fourth time, I came across the Article 8, and I wasn't sure I didn't get a good understanding as to what happens if we're on the Christmas break or holiday breaks, and a hall monitor goes to jury duty. Are they paid?
So the regulation on compensation for jury duty comes down to receiving one or the other, but not both. So it depends on local contract. If in fact that person was not working, because it's not a work day for them, they could put in for compensation from the Commonwealth for jury duty.
Any other questions?
Not really, since last time. Armando, do you?
Well, I was hoping Chris was here, but actually on Article 13, the use of the word bid kind of threw me off a little bit.
It is definitely a AFCW language utilized in very traditional unions where you bid on the job. A job is open, then you bid to want the job based on your seniority, credentials, and so on and so forth. So it's very common language in those more traditional unions versus our teachers' union doesn't use that language.
Okay. Thanks.
All the legalese. It's you kind of go cross-eyed reading all these contracts after whether you start to question what the English language is. But yes, always good to review the words because those are important to understand. If we have no further questions or comments, I have a motion to approve the hall monitors UFCW1 Local 791 MOA.
So moved.
All right, that motion was made by Armando. Second.
Second.
Seconded by Lindsay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that motion is carried 3-0. Thank you to both sides, and congratulations for a successful first bargaining sessions for this union. The next item on the agenda, thank you for your patience, Heidi, is the FY25 town meeting articles and capital planning. Oh, hello, Chris. I would like to recognize that Chris Shannon has joined the chat as well. So in speaking with the select board chair, the warrant should open within the next week or two. They're expecting to leave it open for a week, so I will attempt to get some confirmation on that timing. If we need to call a special meeting just for these town meeting articles, we may do so, but my hope is that we will be able to discuss them at our next meeting. Dr. Beta, or should we turn it over to Heidi?
Yeah, what's happening now is between Heidi's office, my office, Dennis's office, and then Mark Tisdale at Town Hall, is they're really trying to, get everything into one pile, if you will, one plan, and then saying, okay, over the next few weeks, get us the backup information. So, and traditionally, the school committee has been, as a quote, been treated as a department, has been provided that 1 or 2 week window that the select board gives you. We don't see a lot of changes happening to these, except, to be quite honest, the language on the vestibule for the South School would have to be something that's probably maybe use language like contingent on the passing of the project. That type of stuff, or just leaving it as is. I'm not sure we're doing both, that's up to you. And the price tag of $500,000 has gone up, not down. So we're working on some of those final numbers. The stage situation has been pretty much closed out, so we're going to need to move forward with that with an article. Pending all of those situations with the article that's being filed about the sunset issue. So if the sunset article doesn't get approved, then you're looking at all new articles again, potentially. So hopefully that goes in the right direction for all sides, both the town side and the school side in terms of that. Heidi, I'll defer to you on other comments.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to let the committee know that the town, Mark Tisdale, has asked that the articles be forwarded to him by tomorrow. That's the due date for their planning purposes. They sort of have a Google Doc for them to start really mulling things over, prior to actually opening up. The warrant, which opens, I believe, on the 17th, a week from now, and then about a week or so later it closes. They put out the dates today. I don't have them in front of me. I'm trying to keep all these many screens open to look at things and also be online. I apologize for that. So again, as Dr. Baeta just said, they are very well aware of the stage coming forth. They're aware of the problem and the life and safety issue that is. And again, if it had been found out at the time of this build, it certainly would have been a change order and paid out of that authorization in any case. It would have had to have been at the time. So that's not a new situation, but since they did close out the authorization, I found out since the last meeting, this would just be a new standalone article, but they're aware that this is coming forward. These, the next two were, articles that were already there. Again, as Dr. Baeta mentioned, the sunset. They've asked that they're going to have sort of a blanket one on the sunset articles to be reactivated, but they did ask that we bring forth separate ones should they have to go a different route with the, however town meeting goes. So that's what that's about, but that's money that is already long ago voted and in hand. It's not new monies. The vestibule, as Dr. Baeta said, I will say that DRA, the town's house doctor, architect, said that it would be about $111,000 for them to do the plans, et cetera, for the vestibule. We believe that the $500,000 might be a little high on the builder side. So where exactly that will land over the next 2 weeks when we get
more concrete documents, we'll do that. The wheelchair swings and the tech needs to speak for themselves. Security audit was already passed. We need just a little bit extra money to get that done, which is critical, and certainly there's been more things in the news in the last week. So that security audit is a high priority. And then the capital needs assessment, my understanding is, I don't, anecdotally, is that the town conducted their own internally at one time with the other town buildings. I think the school, I may be wrong, may be the only buildings that are not necessarily have been a full full capital needs assessment. And, it's really, I don't want to put my opinion in, but to be fiscally responsible as we go forward, when the town has asked us for a multi-year capital needs plan that they can use to sort of figure out town-wide plan, we would not be able to provide that without having someone come in. So that would guide, obviously, the school committee, the school department, but I believe it also is probably pretty important for the town to fold that in with looking at the rest of the building. So again, I apologize if that's coming off as opinion. We're just trying to meet really what's being asked. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Were you gonna?
I was just going to comment that if you remember the last situation that we had last year, we had a number of articles that went forward, and then because of budget squeeze, we withdrew articles, right? If you remember the van situation, which was about $300,000. So to Heidi's point, what we're trying to do is stop this Band-Aid, I hate to use the word nickel and dime capital planning that's not working. It doesn't show us what the priorities are as a district for our 8 buildings. And yes, I say 8, I'm including the high school. So that you can say to yourself, okay, we know that X years from now, even the high school is going to need X work, and not wait until the issue becomes critical. I think we see a little bit of that right now in this situation with the hardware and who's responsible for it and updates and so on and so forth that I'm trying to dig and find some answers to. Some of that would be just based on capital because it's only done every few years or every 5 to 10 years. So just wanted to put that out there in terms of we've never had a traditional capital plan that's extensive. It's always been, okay, these are the issues that we're seeing right now. Let's put our capital plan together and move it forward.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that's a great idea to have a long-term plan. Like heating system will eventually go. We can probably get estimate how long it'll take before they fail, and we need to put a plan in to replace them, and so on.
I'm used to a capital plan, and again, this is the committee's decision, not the superintendent's. My job is to provide you with information and maybe make some recommendations. But capital plans traditionally will utilize things that need to be done over X number of years, whatever that is. And then in between there, you also have a statement of interest, an accelerated repair, those types of things where you can go after the MSBA or even other grants like we're doing right now with the electrification of the Wilkins, which is a partly federal grant. But you have to have that outlined over the next 5 to 10 years. And then what happens is priorities may change from year to year. You may get an emergency situation, but you're saying to yourself, okay, I know that this needs to be done in the next 3 to 5 years. It can't wait for 5 to 10 years. And so it allows for you to try to stick to that plan and those priorities instead of the emergency situations, which can also still happen.
We have to do both.
We have to, and certain times I have done both at certain times.
I mean, there's no one, this is the plan, that's it, because you're going to have fires along the way, and you've got to be able to put them out. And it costs money to put them out.
And you have to work within a budget, and I want to stress very highly that my experience has been that this is a dual effort of town and schools working together around prioritizing that. So it's the recommendation of a third party to you, and then you prioritize those things, and they get sent forward into one capital plan for the town, I hope. And I believe that's the way it's being done. And then from there, there's the selection of which articles go forward. I think that's another discussion that needs to happen, is capital planning committees typically send one article to town meeting, and people can ask questions about line items, but you're voting on one, or you're making an amendment. You're not going through 50 different articles for capital planning needs.
Lindsay, good question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Heidi, yes, Heidi.
Sorry. I just wanted to add as well that when I was talking to the town's finance director, if there are a couple, there might be a little bit, I might have mentioned this last time, a little bit of money left in a few of those articles. And as I said last time, it's historically the way the town does it, that if we look through and I confirm with her that there's a little money from this one, a little money from that one, that will be part of the language that goes forward, that we would recommend to use that existing old excess towards maybe the swing or something like that. So in the end, it may be just moving it from one older article to the newer article and no new monies, or reduce it. So I'll be working with Biz Zaleski on that as well.
Heidi,
Question, yes.
yeah, Heidi, I just want to clarify, would that require an article in order to do that? Or could that just, since the fund, sorry, actually, let me check my understanding here. So you're saying the funds could exist somewhere else, and we would just have to reallocate them to cover these gaps that we're trying to fill with an article. Would that require an article to go through, or could we do that without this article? Like for the wheelchair?
It would still require a vote.
Gotcha. A vote.
Yes, we would.
Of town meeting, sorry.
We would bring forward, say the article, I'll just use the wheelchair swing.
Yeah.
We would bring forward the article for the additional funds for the wheelchair swing. However, I believe right now, and I just want to confirm with Biz, but when I look at the budget reports, say this, I believe it's around 14,000 left over from an older article. But again, things sunsetted. So as whatever votes happen at the beginning of the meeting about sunsetting, would drive into this. But even if it didn't, if they have the funds on hand already allocated, it's not new free cash being spent or anything like that, no new funds if we're using older existing funds. And what has historically happened, I look through the old articles, typically they just move money, and I can see it in our budget reports too, that will say, let's just say this $10,000, I believe it might have been the West bathrooms or something from a couple of years ago, that might be remaining. They're not authorizations to borrow. If they were already funded with free cash, the money is already sitting, and there's nothing new to go borrow or to raise through taxation. And then they could say, well, okay, the swing is 17,000 and change. We can move 10 or whatever thousand over from this older article to basically fund a chunk of it. So there's not a lot left in any older articles, but we would certainly make use of that, as the town has historically done, before they vote any new monies. And so the ask for the new monies would be reduced by just moving over older funds.
Okay, and that's really helpful, thank you. And when would we know when that money, or when would we know that money is available? Would it be, I'm just trying to figure out.
We would recommend it in the wording of what we bring forward. I'll try to speak with Biz. I know the town and the school this week is trying to close the books on 24. So I would say probably next week,
Okay.
but I will certainly send her an email in the morning, and if she has time to chat quickly of confirming the amounts, I can send that out as an informational memo to the chair, and she could share it out informational to the committee if that is what you think is the best way to do that.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful. I think that's just helping me understand if this is something that that would help me understand if this is something we should put forward now versus wait, or how we want to word it. So thank you. I also wanted to ask a couple questions. So first of all, I'd love, and this is a question for the chair, could we put this on executive session agenda for the next meeting? Because I do have some questions about the South Project and the firewall, but I think because those are related to school safety, they just need to be an executive session. So want to make sure we have the chance to discuss that without, compromising student safety. Okay. And then I think something that would be really helpful for me too is just understanding, I know that the priority level is on here, like 1 through 6, which is super helpful. Dr. Byett, I'd like to request, could we get kind of a write-up of like pros and cons of waiting on some of these? So like obviously high school stage, life and safety, like cons are pretty clear. And then just kind of go through the list, like what would happen if we waited, what's like the longest, just trying to be mindful of like requesting things in special town meeting in the middle of the year. I want to make sure like we're really doing our due diligence to prioritize like what is like actually needs to go through now versus what can we wait on. I think just having kind of like a item by item write-up of like, here's what would happen if we waited till next year, or like down the, I think, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
For some of these, I would want to only do them in an executive session.
Yeah, and that
Because
was-
they'd be specific versus others, I might say, well, if we don't do the wheelchair, we've been waiting for 2.5 years already. We do have an issue with students with wheelchairs. It's time to do this before we face an issue with OCR or something like that. But with the safety issues, I would prefer to do that in executive session as well.
Same. Okay, perfect. And then I also was wondering, I know there's some opportunities to work with the town here. I know Heidi, you've been doing a lot of that with the business office for the municipal side, and I'm just thinking, like, is there, actually, I guess it's, never mind, scratch that. Would love to see if there's an opportunity here maybe to work with the CPC on the wheelchair swing. I know they've been involved with some of the playground things, and I'm like off base here because the original article wasn't the CPC article, but I'm curious to see maybe, and also it's short notice, so, but I'd be curious to see if that's something we could at least look into or inquire about, because I know they've been great supporters of school projects in the past. Just as another option. Reading my notes, I think that was it.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Chris, do you have any questions before I get to mine? I had some similar questions. Yes, my question, for the wheelchair swing is obviously it's the children using it, but also the funding benefit. With the sunsetting, would those funds be more likely to be available now versus in the spring? So I had some questions about that. I think to Lindsay's point about working with the town, about the original telephone article was a combined town-school article, if I remember. Is the town all set on telephones, or could this be like a co-sponsored, or is there a reason why like we are the ones who need the telephones and nobody else does? Again, this might be an executive session, a discussion or something. So just had some questions related to that. I wanted to address kind of the South School vestibule. Again, more detail than we can go into for executive session, but also talk about the timeline, what it would look like if the revote were to happen and be successful versus if we are closing the school versus an addition and renovation. And I think some of that has to go to the executive session because it's why certain things need to be done the way they are.
Madam Chair, through you to the remainder of the committee, I think what would be important is to do a little something that we've been doing and it's kind of worked. One is, what are the questions of the committee, such as the pro and con and all of that? I can set that up into an executive session situation where I bring something to you, and also just the public stuff. So if we're talking about anything to do with the safety of children, staff, and things like vestibules and all of that, I would want to do that in executive session as we've done in other items, and we would articulate the open meeting law that allows you to do that as part of the opening of the meeting, and then still have those bulleted items for everything else. So if you could get those, in the next few days, then we can start to tackle some of those.
All right, sounds great. And I just wanted to revisit what you said, Heidi. So there isn't so for the two articles that were sunsetted, meaning the telephones and the DAW, there is an attempt to revoke the sunset clause, which would make all of those funds available again. So there wouldn't be any need for new funds for this?
My understanding is from speaking with the town's finance director that there is a plan or an intent, or there was, I assume there still is, because we haven't heard otherwise, that there will be an article to basically, revoke or delay or reword or whatever. Okay. They've been working on that. So that essentially they closed, I believe, 156 articles throughout the town, all the town departments. And the work had to stop. People were in the middle of projects and different things. So it's not just us. So they are looking at doing something different to fix that issue that I don't think was anticipated maybe when it passed. I wasn't, I can't speak to that. So if that article passes, all of these are automatically refunded the way they were as if it didn't happen. And us bringing forth new articles would not need to be voted on. However, they did say that if that does not pass as a blanket, then to go ahead and bring forth the articles, and I'm sure other departments will be as well, to finish what was happening. So we had a PO, and I forget how much it was for the telephone article, and that had to be closed. The DAR AC, again, there's no electrical to go. The town's had, it's been a lot of money spent to put that air conditioning in, but the permanent electrical is not done. We have a quote in hand, and we were just about to sign with them when we found out that that would be sunsetted. So these are, projects that were in the works. And so that's essentially what would happen with that. And then, again, I will look at what might be available. The telephone article, I can speak to that. It did say town and school, but last, 6 or 8 months ago, I checked with the town hall and asked if there were needs in any town departments, and they said no.
Okay.
And again, a lot of this was during the school project. We had what was called attic stock. Joyce was saying, he told me that was bought, through the school budget, and then whatever happened during the high school build, it ended up that we had to sort of, give the phones and stuff that were in the school budget, paid for phones and stock over to the high school project, and it was supposed to be, I believe, I don't know the exact situation, replenished to the school through this article. Some reason or not, it just didn't get ordered, since then. So I think they were just using the little bits they had left, and then all of a sudden now there's nothing left. So it could have been done sooner, maybe. I can't speak to that, but that's just where we are now. So the town is very well aware that the first 3 articles, the 2 prior ones and the stage are coming forth. They're very well aware, as well as similarly throughout the town for other departments that still had needs, and the articles suddenly closed. So those will not be any kind of a surprise. I also did forward to an email back to Mark Tisdale that potentially we would have a capital needs assessment from an outside vendor. I wasn't sure what the school committee would determine whether to bring it forward, but I did let him know because they've been asking for a capital needs plan from us. So I just said, we're waiting to see what happens with this, and forwarded him from the vendor that we got, just a rough quote from, just for the purposes of bringing this forward. That doesn't mean that they would be the vendor if this went through, but they sent a sample report, and I forwarded that to him as well. Like, this is something that is potentially going to be coming forward, so that they know we're trying to put together a long-range capital plan as they are asking for. And that's where, we don't know where it's going to land, what's going to happen, but that we have tried to put documents together to bring forward. If it should be brought all the way forward to town meeting, that remains to be seen, depending on how the committee decides. But so they are aware that, we're working on all of these, basically all of these things. I will have to send him up tomorrow this list as a placeholder, because that is what they're requiring, that it's due tomorrow. So all of this will go forward to Mark Tisdale in the morning. And I will add that it still has not been voted yet, but this is sort of, they want placeholders to start building out, like, what might be the high water mark across the land,
Which was
So
the
that's-
same, I'm sorry, Heidi, which was the same process you used last year, it's just a placeholder, and then then you guys vote later, and then it's withdrawn, or whatever the case may be. So that's what we would be using for something like this at this time, versus an actual 10-year plan. We would be looking at every single year off of that plan, what's the priority versus emergency situations.
All right, okay, so we still have, so I ask the committee to send me questions, any further questions or comments, and we'll collect that. And again, divide them into things that to be in an executive session because they deal with safety, and then things that can be discussed in public session. And if we need to call a meeting after the warrant opens, we will do that. So keep thinking about this. I appreciate the clarification on these matters. Anything else on these, on the town meeting articles? Chris, all good? All right. The next item is the redistricting of all K through 5 elementary schools update. Yes, Dr. Bate, I know that you have the presentation of the.
Yeah, it's a very simple memo that I put together in the process. This is just for information tonight. I would ask that you look at some of these recommendations and thoughts. The idea here is to put together a K-5 redistricting committee that would begin meeting as soon as October, with a recommendation or recommendations to the school committee by October of '25. And a couple of different ways that we're looking at doing this. One of them is utilizing some of the projects that I've seen out there. So all of this is a makeup of that, like who's on it and so on. So 5 elementary principals, 5 parent or guardians of students attending K-5 schools appointed by the school committee. I think in the past you've appointed it through the chair. 1 parent and guardian of a student attending the preschool, because that family, those families have a direct impact. Our director of facilities and grounds, because of the knowledge of our buildings and transportation. Director of special education or his designee. 2 school committee members. It can also be 1, but it's up to you. Myself or the designee, depending on how I'm receiving this report. I'm contemplating actually having, reaching out to another administrator to be on the committee, and then I would be receiving the report and be able to give it feedback, and then all of that would go to the school committee. So I'm going to reach out and see if there's any love for that, because it's a long process for anyone who's ever done redistricting. And I've CC'd everybody on this that would be involved. To be very, very direct, any redistricting that we are doing needs to have the addressing of what are we doing with the South. Because if we're moving all the students from the South, it's more than likely to 2 schools. I spoke today to the National Executive Director of School Facilities. It's actually a local gentleman that I've worked with before. And he's like, you can't move 300 kids into an elementary school with the size of your kitchen and your cafeteria and so on. So now we're looking at 1 school being shut down, kids split, redistricting everybody to probably 2 other locations. And on top of that, looking at modulars, permanent modulars and or temporary and or leased or purchased. We got to figure that out. That becomes a secondary part of this discussion. But that leaves the Wilkins in play as an elementary school, which means we have not addressed our preschool issue. So it's a convoluted, pretty significant process to provide you as many different areas as possible, because we are. I have some intentions of having this committee also potentially do some site visits. What is a modular? What does it actually look like? Because if you visited it off at some place where it's being sold to us, that's very different than actually seeing it. I don't know if any of you have been down to the middle school recently and just walked those modules back there. That's, of course, they would be more high-end today than they were back in the day, but it gives you a little feeling of what it looks like. But there's also a number of elementary schools throughout the state that have added 5, 10, 15, 30 modular classrooms and as permanent housing, in terms of, so at the next meeting, I'll ask you to vote on what you think the makeup of the committee should be. Mm-hmm. Okay?
And can we have this emailed out so that everybody has?
Yes, I'll make sure that it's emailed out. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this?
I don't have any questions. I think I'm excited that we're moving this forward so that we can start to get some answers. I do just want to emphasize, double, triple underline that this is going to impact all elementary schools. So just want to make sure folks who are tuning in are aware of that. And I think that's something we can keep in mind too as we look at membership, just to make sure there's representation.
Yeah, this is as big of a shift, if not more of a shift,
Yeah.
than just building a new school for a number of reasons. So, yes, it's quite the project.
And again, I also want to stress that this happens no matter what we decide to do with the South School. Whether the new school goes forward, whether we close the South School, whether we do additional renovations to South School, we have to redistrict because of enrollment. So this is going forward in any case.
Catherine,
Yes,
we had some preliminary data on
yes.
redistricting. Maybe it's time to bring that out and for the committee to start looking, and so they have a base to start off with.
Right, I think one of the most helpful things that we got from, the redistricting that we got was for for consolidated, but thinking that the South School would be in that part of town. Without it, we would have to kind of rethink the maps and the proposals, but the heat map, the so-called heat map, which was the population density, I think is really helpful in seeing where our densest populations are, especially in relation to major roads, and thinking about, you know, how do we incorporate those into that, what is that gonna mean for traffic? So that would be a great place to start, and something we could probably bring forward even to the first meeting and saying like, here's where the kids live.
Yes.
We might even be updated since then, because that's from a couple years ago, and we've had new developments put in, so, but I think it was just really eye-opening. I think that was one of the most helpful things to come out of that
It was.
redistricting discussion, was exactly where kids live.
I'm really interested to see how much of a shift we've had in that heat map.
No.
Yes. Because I think people would be surprised.
Yeah.
Just there are some places you think, oh yes, there's a lot of people there. People don't realize unless you know the South School neighborhoods, there's some really densely packed ones.
Yep.
I mean, we send a bus in and it fills up in one neighborhood. So having to move all those kids to another part of town is going to be huge. And, you know, having to split something like that would be really complicated. So it's going to be quite a process, but yes.
One other question.
Sure.
Just a quick one, Dr. Bayetta. Should Mark Tinsdale be a part of this committee, or someone he represents because of trafficking issues and reprogramming lights?
There's a combination of doing that, yes. There's a potential request that you could say, we even if it's an ex officio, somebody that we could provide them information or ask up front. We don't need you to attend every meeting, but the fact is there'd be a few meetings that we'd be interested in having your expertise, or even the town's expertise. I mean, when we had that issue with the lights down here, I reached out to Mark through your request, and then we got that little shift that just helped a little bit, not huge, but enough to make it feel a little bit better that things were going quicker. Yeah, so that could be potential, Mark, or to be quite honest, I'd defer to the town manager. But someone like that like him.
I'd like to just propose if there's a way we could think about student involvement, given, I mean, it's going to be hard to ask kindergartners what they think about redistricting, but, you know, even high schoolers, you know, kind of remembering what, and you have a great view because you've come out the other end when everybody's come together, and what that means to have all the different schools, but to have any sort of student representation, again, even if it's just for part of the time to come in and think about what that means to the kids, because this is going to affect them as well, and to have them have some say, I think would be fair. Any other questions, comments? All right. We've already started discussing, but the South Elementary School building needs, you know, again, we have to decide about closing the South, that it really needs to be 2 schools if we're going to close it. The additional renovation issue, I don't know if you have any updates on additional cost estimates for that.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I've been working on right now has been the beginning of discussions with third parties on modulars and what that looks like and the costs and so on. I'll be reaching out to DRA. Typically, your OPM is able to provide, you know, who are the folks in the field that can give us some answers. And then don't forget, when it comes to modulars, you're looking at a Springtown meeting article potentially that early on everything design and everything to do with the facility itself in terms of where it's going to go, and you need to, quote, study it. You just don't bring in modular classrooms and drop them down. It has to be looked at in terms of what's the best place.
The fire department will be interested in knowing also.
Oh, yeah, that way, we have to go through, you have to go through an entire permitting process like you would with a regular building. And then are they permanent? And again, I'll try to get some stuff out to the committee. There are permanent modular classrooms that are being built in today's world, even in the Northeast. There's a number of them here in Massachusetts that I've found out about recently, versus is it a lease of used ones for a period of time, a year, let's say, while you're doing something else to a building. And the same thing with the Wilkins. One of the things that both the SOIs that I provided to the South School Working Group Committee, in my memo to them that I sent to you folks earlier today, is that the SOI speaks very concretely about what's been done at the Wilkins, what's been done at the South, and you'll see that the Wilkins is in a good place because of the bathroom update, because of the roof update, because of the window update. So really, that whole electrification program with HVAC and all of that, if that grant was to actually come through, and we'd still have to borrow some money to finish it, that building would be at its core solid. And so that could then, lead into having a Hanson, a Wilkins, a Daw, and a Gibbons that would be 4 solid buildings for the next X number of years. But once you start to look at modular classrooms, you have to be careful about how many people you're moving in, because of the kitchens, the cafeterias, and all of that. You can't do those as modulars. It's a whole different ballgame. So it becomes the same situation we had at the high school, where the lunch lines become so large and so big that you have to really look at changing your schedule in order to be able to have a safer process, if you will. So.
One thing I didn't know about the middle school, how are the modules heated? Is it from the main building, or do they have their own separate heating?
That's a good question. If I remember correctly, the AC system and the heating all comes, I believe it's separate. I'll look at it for you, but I thought it was separate.
Oh, yeah, you would probably know.
Because it was also the popular place, because it became the first place in town that we actually had air conditioning.
Oh.
And it's still the reason why people don't mind the modulars at the middle school in early September and in late May into June, when we're still here, because it's always had AC.
Interesting.
It's also septic, not sewer. That causes other issues.
Win some, you lose some.
Yeah, you win some, you lose some, yes. That's a good way to put it.
I do want to point out that, the vote this past June, the no vote to not go forward with the consolidated school, doesn't mean that we can do nothing, and that's why we have to explore this, because we have to decide, and we're left with the options of closing the South School and moving kids to modulars at multiple schools now, or doing the addition renovation, which will be extremely expensive for the South School building. But we do continue to work with the Elementary School Building Committee, which is pursuing the revote of the proposed new consolidated elementary school. As Dr. Bayham noted, they have a meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, September 11th at 7 p.m. virtually. It has not been posted as a joint meeting with us. They're going to look at tomorrow a review of the latest communication from the MSBA, a discussion of the public outreach, and a look at the makeup of the committee. So I may come back if we need a different additional members or with a report. So I will come back with a report after that.
Yeah, I think that, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think that's probably becoming very, very important for the entire committee to be aware of what's going on. No one wants to spend extra time in meetings, but
Right.
but I think it becomes very important that we hear it from the work as it appears. We'll eventually do the vote, and I don't tend to like being in the dark until the vote happens.
Right. Yeah, I think it's really important. We've talked about how to get this information out and make sure that information is documented, that maybe we have a summary of what is discussed put out, so that, and with a link to the full meeting, and saying, like, this meeting discussed XYZ, here's a link to the full meeting if you want to look at the discussion specifically about redistricting that starts at minute 16 or something, so that people have this information. But thinking about getting this information out, that will be part of the public outreach discussion tomorrow, so part of that. And we've also touched on the Wilkins Elementary School building need. I want to stress that the federal grant is an application, the application process has not yet been granted. You know, we are looking at this, we're trying to keep this in play because we want to be able to use that building as an elementary school, maybe as a preschool, depending upon what happens, but we need to think about that. The electrical work would mean closing that building for a significant portion of time, and so that needs to be in play. Again, this is all hypothetical because it hasn't been fully awarded yet, but this is the reason we're talking about it now, is because it is part of this huge plan that we would like, because eventually we would like to be able to focus on the middle school and not just keep doing issues, little issues in this, and that speaks to the capital plan. What can we do to keep these buildings going so that we can address the ones that have major issues, address the emergencies and not?
One thing I think about, and I don't know what the solution is, if we have a potential vote, if you vote in April, the building committee needs to make a decision on presenting again to the public as early as possible. And perhaps it's presenting again to the public both options and just run with it and then until we determine where we're going with it. Because a lot of complaints with the last one, it didn't start soon enough, not enough people knew about it. And if it's a townwide vote, you know, we need to reach out to as many people as possible. The way to do that is to do it as earlier than later, before a final decision's made.
Right, yeah, exactly. I think that's a very good point. Time is of the essence. The other side's already mobilizing, the one that wants to vote no. But, you know, we have these issues we have to address still, but the building committee needs to move forward.
Any balls in the air?
Yep, the ball in the air, exactly. So much juggling. All right, if there's nothing else on South Elementary, Wilkins Elementary redistricting, Chris, you good? Okay. Any questions on the South or comments about the South or the Wilkins? Okay, all right. Moving on to other matters, I would like to ask at this time for any amendments to the the August 27th, 2024 meeting.
I have 3 small edits. So the
Sure.
first one is on page 2 at the very top, second line. It says, "It became clear that there would not be an increase in Chapter 70 or SOA money." I think that should be rephrased to say, "When it became clear that Chapter 70 SOA money would not increase the way it did in previous years." Just because I think that is the meaning there, like there were pretty significant increases the last 2 years, but then not this year. It's not that our Chapter 78 didn't increase. So just for clarity there. Second edit is 4 paragraphs down underneath the motion. Just the last sentence again, where Ms. Heidi Perkins expressed concern on the wording of the motion. For example, if a principal left during the school year, just want to add, and Lindsay Kreckler updated language to reflect or to address that concern, just because the language of the motion that's in there does reflect that concern. I know we had to like wordsmith it a little bit in the moment, but just want to reflect that was accounted for. And then the third and last one is on page 5 under item C, 6C, redistricting update, just to say work on redistricting, not the town, but all elementary schools will begin in September. Just for clarity there, it's not the town K through 12, it's just the elementary schools.
Okay.
That's it.
Chris Armando?
None.
I had one. I would, on page 4, under paragraph C, the last sentence, Dr. Baeta asked why this line item is included in and I would add school department budget, just to make it clear. That's what we were talking about. And then on the last page, page 6, the second paragraph, this may be a me error, but that should read October 6th and not October 26th.
Sorry, where is that?
The event for Fred Richards will be on October 6th and not October 26th. It could be that I read the date wrong, but the correct date is October 6th. So it's the last page, page 6. Second paragraph.
6.
Yeah, there's a page 6, yeah.
Okay, thank you, that would do it.
Yeah, that was a long meeting. There was There's a lot of minutes. Thank you to our recording secretary for that. Thank you to Maureen for sticking through this and doing our minutes too. All right, so any other, Chris, did you have any? No, okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
All right, that was made by Lindsay. A second?
Second.
Seconded by Armando. And the motion's been moved and seconded. We have Chris online, so let's do a roll call vote. Armando?
Aye.
Lindsay?
Aye.
Chris? All right, and myself, aye. So that is, the motion is carried 4-0. The next item is just an introduction of the topic. This is for the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, MASC, and the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, MASS. Joint annual conference will be held November 6th through 9th in Hyannis. Who is planning to attend?
Armando's registered.
Armando's
Yeah.
planning.
Right.
Yep.
And I'll follow up with Kathy about also registering.
All right, and possibly Lindsay. Chris, are you going? You have enough travel that you have to do. All right, so it looks like we have at least 2 members attending. I did include in the packets a report of the resolutions committee. Last year, if we recall, we supported our colleagues at Southeastern Regional on the resolution about the transportation bidding process. So I just added this to see if, for you guys to look through and see if there was any that made sense for us to sponsor as a school committee. We don't have to vote or even think about it. This is not till November, but just something to consider as Lindsay and Armando prepare for the conference. So,
I think
yes.
what we'll need to do is appoint one of the people
Okay,
going
yeah.
to be a delegate for our school committee, and then that person will attend the resolutions
You're it.
meeting. That's, I don't hear a second. But then the delegates from all the school committees in attendance vote. I know right off, and obviously we still have time, but I think right off the bat, I was looking at Resolution 7, which was put forward by the Everett School Committee, which is, if I can find it, fully adjusting Chapter 70 aid for inflation. I think
Yes.
we've definitely been seeing the impacts of that, so would be interested to come back to that in a future meeting, just to authorize our delegates to vote for that.
Yes, that was the one that jumped out to me too, was the one that really, it feels like appropriate for us to support as the MASC advocates for, at the state.
I would also be careful on making sure that you're reading these for any potential consideration that people haven't looked at a cost to a
Yes.
district. There are a couple in here that there could be a cost to a district
Yeah.
if they're passed, so just for your consideration, please.
But not for Resolution 7. But yeah, heard.
Yes, no, exactly, some of them are, yes, more involved, and some of them I think make good sense, but are gonna be popular. Chris, yes?
Will we have a chance to discuss them as a group
Yes.
closer to the event? Okay.
Yes, for sure. This is just our introduction, so I wanted to, following our practice, give you some time to look at them and look over them. And
Sorry if I was
No, it's okay.
jumping the gun a little bit.
yes. Any other matters? I have a couple, but I'll leave it up in any other. I do have an update on the Fred Richards celebration. That is Sunday, October 6th, from 12 to 1 at the Stoughton High School. Doors are going to open at 11. It's first come, first serve. It is free. It is being marketed to Stoughton residents. The idea is to celebrate our local hero. There is no parade or meet and greet or autograph session because Fred has this is a very tight timeline for him. He has to get to TD Garden that night for his performance. So just want to give an update on that, but looking forward to celebrating him. I still think we should reach out at some point to his family, to his agent or something, to see if he could participate and read Across America, even if it's virtually or something like that. I would love to see him do that because I know that he wants to be involved with cheering on kids and motivating them, and I think that would be a great way to get him involved, is to have him read for elementary school projects. So if there's nothing else, I will note that next meeting I have FY25 budget update and kickoff to FY26 budget. So on the agenda, those are coming our ways. We have had a request from the Climate Action Plan Committee to consider the recommendations that they proposed to the select board the other day that came in, unfortunately, after our agenda for this meeting. So that is a request that has come in. If there's nothing else, our next regular meeting is Tuesday, September 24th, here in the conference room at the district offices. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, that was made by Lindsay. Second?
Second?
Seconded by Armando. Roll call vote. Armando?
Aye.
Lindsay?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And myself, aye. So that's carried 4-0. This meeting is adjourned at, what is it? 8:43 p.m. I hope everyone's school year continues to start successfully, and thank you all for coming, and good night.